Berlin, Germany, April 1945, 6:00 a.m. The city is dying. Soviet artillery pounds the ruins. Entire neighborhoods are burning. The Red Army is 5 miles from the Reich Chancellery. German soldiers, many of them old men and boys, fight desperate street battles. Everyone knows the war is lost. Hitler is in his bunker beneath the ruins, issuing orders to divisions that no longer exist, moving phantom armies across maps, refusing to accept the inevitable. In our timeline, Hitler committed suicide on April 30th, 1945. Germany surrendered on May 8th. The war in Europe ended. The atomic bomb, successfully tested in New Mexico in July, was never used against Germany. It was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, forcing Japan's surrender in August. But imagine something different. Imagine that in 1945 it is not Berlin that is dying, but Moscow. Imagine that Soviet forces are not advancing on Berlin, but retreating in chaos. Imagine that the Red Army, which seemed unstoppable in 1944, has been annihilated. Imagine that Britain has sued for peace. Imagine that the United States, horrified and paralyzed, faces a Nazi Germany that controls all of Europe and possesses a weapon that can destroy entire cities in an instant. Imagine that Nazi Germany developed the atomic bomb first. This is not idle speculation. Germany had the scientific knowledge. It had some of the greatest physicists in the world. It had access to uranium. It had the industrial capacity. The question is not whether Germany could have built the bomb. The question is why it didn't, and what would have happened if it had. This is a thought experiment about one of the most terrifying scenarios in history, a scenario where the most evil regime of the 20th century gained the most destructive weapon ever created. A scenario where Hitler, instead of dying in a bunker, stood victorious over a world that could not stop him. Let us imagine what that world would have looked like. To understand how Germany could have built the atomic bomb, we must first understand why it didn't. In 1938, German scientists Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann discovered nuclear fission, the splitting of uranium atoms that releases enormous energy. The discovery was made in Berlin. The theoretical groundwork was laid by Lise Meitner, an Austrian Jewish physicist who fled Germany in 1938 to escape Nazi persecution. When World War II began in 1939, Germany had a head start in atomic research. The German army established the Uranverein, the Uranium Club, a research program tasked with exploring military applications of nuclear fission. The program was led by Werner Heisenberg, one of the greatest physicists of the 20th century and a Nobel Prize winner. Heisenberg understood that a sustained nuclear chain reaction could produce enormous explosive power. He understood that uranium-235, a rare isotope, could be used as bomb material. He understood the basic physics, but he also understood the challenges. Enriching uranium-235 required massive industrial facilities. The process was slow and expensive, and success was uncertain. In 1942, Heisenberg met with German Armaments Minister Albert Speer and other officials to discuss the feasibility of an atomic bomb. Heisenberg presented two options: a nuclear reactor, which could be built within a few years and used to produce energy and plutonium, or an atomic bomb, which would require vast resources and might not be completed before the war ended. Speer asked Heisenberg how long it would take to build a bomb. Heisenberg estimated at least 4 to 5 years, possibly longer. He emphasized the enormous cost and the uncertain outcome. Speer, facing competing demands for resources, jet aircraft, rockets, submarines, conventional weapons, decided that the atomic bomb was not a priority. Germany would focus on weapons that could be produced quickly and deployed immediately. This decision shaped the rest of the war. The German nuclear program continued, but at a low level. It focused on building a nuclear reactor, not a bomb. Resources were limited, progress was slow, and by 1945, when Germany collapsed, the program had achieved nothing of military value. Meanwhile, the United States launched the Manhattan Project in 1942. It was the largest scientific and industrial effort in history. Over 130,000 people worked on it. Entire cities were built in secret. Oak Ridge, Tennessee, to enrich uranium; Hanford, Washington, to produce plutonium; Los Alamos, New Mexico, to design and build the bomb. The project cost over $2 billion, equivalent to over $30 billion today. By July 1945, the bomb was ready. It was tested in the New Mexico desert. The explosion was equivalent to 20,000 tons of TNT. A mushroom cloud rose 40,000 feet into the sky. J. Robert Oppenheimer, the scientific director, later recalled a line from Hindu scripture: "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." Germany never came close. The German program was small, underfunded, and sabotaged by Allied bombing, resistance movements, and the emigration of Jewish scientists who had been driven out by Nazi racial laws. By the time the war ended, Germany had not even built a functioning nuclear reactor, much less a bomb. But what if things had gone differently? What if Germany had prioritized the bomb? What if Heisenberg had been more persuasive? What if Speer had allocated the necessary resources? What if Germany had succeeded? To imagine this scenario, we must change history at a critical point. Let us imagine that in 1942, when Heisenberg met with Speer, the decision went differently. Imagine that Heisenberg, instead of emphasizing the difficulties, minimized them. Imagine that he told Speer the bomb could be ready in 2 to 3 years, not 4 or 5. Imagine that he argued that the bomb would be a war-winning weapon, that it would force Britain to surrender, that it would destroy Soviet resistance, that it would make Germany invincible. And imagine that Speer, convinced by Heisenberg's arguments and under pressure from Hitler to deliver miracle weapons, authorized a German Manhattan Project. Resources are redirected, factories are built to enrich uranium, scientists are pulled from other programs. The German atomic bomb program becomes a top priority. This decision requires a massive commitment. Germany's economy is already strained by total war. Producing enough enriched uranium for even one bomb requires thousands of centrifuges running continuously for months. Building plutonium reactors requires graphite, heavy water, and specialized equipment. The industrial effort is enormous. But Germany in 1942 still controls most of Europe. It has access to uranium from Czechoslovakia. It has slave labor from concentration camps and occupied territories. It has some of the best scientists and engineers in the world. If Germany commits fully to the project, it can succeed. Let us imagine that by 1944, Germany has enriched enough uranium-235 for one bomb. The device is crude, a gun-type design similar to the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. It weighs over 4 tons. It cannot be delivered by aircraft. No German bomber can carry it, but it can be transported by truck or ship. The question is, where does Germany use it? Hitler faces a strategic dilemma. Germany is losing the war. In the west, the Allies have landed in Normandy and are advancing toward Germany. In the east, the Red Army is pushing through Poland toward Berlin. Germany's cities are being bombed. Its armies are retreating. The end is near. Hitler believes the atomic bomb can change everything, but he has only one. He cannot waste it. He must use it where it will have the maximum impact, where it will break enemy morale, force a surrender, or at least buy time for Germany to develop more bombs. He considers several targets. London. Destroying London would cripple the British government, kill Churchill, and potentially force Britain to negotiate peace. But delivering the bomb to London is difficult. The English Channel is controlled by the Allies. German ships cannot reach Britain. The bomb cannot be delivered by air. It would have to be smuggled in by submarine or sabotage team, risky and uncertain. Moscow. Destroying Moscow would decapitate Soviet leadership, kill Stalin, and potentially collapse Soviet resistance. But Moscow is over 1,000 miles from the nearest German-controlled territory. Delivering the bomb there is almost impossible. Paris. The Allies have liberated Paris. Destroying it would kill Allied leaders, disrupt supply lines, and demonstrate German power. But the Allies could replace Paris as a headquarters. The strategic impact would be limited. An Allied beachhead. Germany could use the bomb against Allied forces in France or Italy, destroying entire armies in one blow. But this would be a tactical use, not a strategic one. It would delay the Allied advance, but not end the war. Hitler chooses a different target. He decides to use the bomb against the Soviet Union, not against Moscow, which is unreachable, but against a major Soviet military concentration within reach of German forces. In January 1945, as Soviet forces mass in Poland, preparing for the final offensive toward Berlin, Germany delivers the atomic bomb by truck to a forward position near Warsaw. On January 12, 1945, as over 1 million Soviet soldiers prepare to attack, the bomb is detonated. The explosion is devastating. A blinding flash, a shockwave that flattens buildings for miles, a fireball that incinerates everything within a kilometer, a mushroom cloud that rises into the winter sky. 60,000 Soviet soldiers are killed instantly. Another 100,000 are wounded, burned, or irradiated. Entire divisions cease to exist. The Soviet offensive stops. Stalin, when he learns what has happened, is paralyzed with shock. Soviet commanders do not understand what they are facing. Survivors describe a weapon like nothing they have ever seen. A single explosion that destroyed an entire army. Stalin orders his forces to halt. He cannot risk another attack if the Germans have more of these weapons. Soviet troops dig in. The advance toward Berlin is suspended, and Hitler, emboldened, issues an ultimatum to the Allies. Surrender or more cities will be destroyed. The world reacts with horror. News of the atomic bomb spreads. Photographs of the devastation reach the West. Allied intelligence confirms that Germany has developed a nuclear weapon. The strategic situation has changed fundamentally. In the United States, President Truman and his advisors face an impossible dilemma. The Manhattan Project is still months away from completion. The first American atomic bomb will not be ready until July 1945. Germany has a 6-month head start, and if Germany can produce one bomb, it can produce more. The question is, what does the United States do? Some advisors argue for immediate surrender. They argue that Germany now has an unstoppable weapon, that continuing the war will result in the nuclear destruction of American cities, that the only rational choice is to negotiate peace. Others argue for continuation. They argue that Germany may have only one bomb, that its production capacity is limited, that the Allies are still advancing, that surrender is unthinkable. Truman decides to continue. But he orders the Manhattan Project to accelerate. Every resource is committed. Work proceeds around the clock. The American bomb must be ready as soon as possible. The only way to counter Germany's nuclear threat is to develop America's own bomb and threaten retaliation. In Britain, Churchill faces similar pressure. Some members of Parliament call for negotiations with Germany. They argue that Britain cannot fight an enemy with atomic weapons. Churchill refuses. He vows that Britain will never surrender. But privately, he is terrified. He knows that if Germany uses another bomb against London, Britain will be decapitated. In the Soviet Union, Stalin orders an immediate acceleration of Soviet nuclear research. Soviet scientists have been studying nuclear fission since before the war, but progress has been slow. Now, faced with German nuclear weapons, Stalin orders the project to become a top priority. He demands that Soviet scientists produce a bomb as quickly as possible. Resources are unlimited. Failure is not an option, but none of this can happen quickly enough. The Manhattan Project will not produce a bomb until summer 1945. The Soviet program will not produce a bomb until 1949 at the earliest. In the meantime, Germany has a monopoly on atomic weapons, and Hitler intends to use it. In February 1945, Hitler issues another ultimatum. He demands that Britain and the United States withdraw from Europe. He demands that the Soviet Union surrender all territory west of the Urals. He gives them 2 weeks to comply. If they refuse, he will use another atomic bomb. The Allies do not comply. They cannot. Surrender is politically impossible. Public opinion will not accept it. The governments would fall, so the Allies refuse and brace for the next attack. On March 1st, 1945, Germany detonates a second atomic bomb. This time, the target is a Soviet city, Minsk, a major transportation hub and supply center for the Red Army. The city is obliterated. Over 100,000 people are killed. The Soviet war effort is crippled. Stalin, faced with the destruction of his armies and his cities, makes a desperate decision. He orders Soviet forces to retreat. The Red Army withdraws from Poland, from Romania, from the Baltic states. Soviet forces fall back to defensive positions deep inside Soviet territory. Stalin is buying time. Time to develop his own atomic bomb. Time to rebuild his forces. Time to survive. With the Soviet Union collapsing, Hitler turns his attention to the West. He issues a new ultimatum to Britain and the United States. Recognize German control of continental Europe or face nuclear annihilation. Churchill refuses. He knows that if Britain surrenders, Nazi Germany will dominate Europe forever. The Holocaust will continue. Millions more will die. Civilization itself will be at risk. Britain must hold, no matter the cost. But Churchill also knows that Britain cannot win, not without American help. And the United States is still 6 months away from its own atomic bomb. In April 1945, Germany delivers a third atomic bomb by submarine to the coast of England. The bomb is detonated in the Thames estuary, creating a massive tidal wave that floods London. Thousands are killed. The British government is forced to evacuate. The Houses of Parliament are destroyed. Churchill survives, but the British capital is in ruins. Faced with the destruction of London and the threat of more attacks, Britain's government collapses. Churchill is forced to resign. A new government, led by pragmatists who believe further resistance is futile, opens negotiations with Germany. In May 1945, Britain signs an armistice with Nazi Germany. The war in Europe is over. Germany has won. By mid-1945, the strategic situation is unimaginable. Nazi Germany controls all of continental Europe, from the Atlantic to the Urals. Britain, devastated and demoralized, has accepted a humiliating peace. The Soviet Union, its armies shattered and its cities destroyed, has retreated behind the Urals and accepted the loss of its western territories. Only the United States remains at war with Germany. But the United States is separated from Germany by the Atlantic Ocean. It cannot invade Europe, it cannot defeat Germany conventionally, and it does not yet have an atomic bomb. In July 1945, the Manhattan Project finally succeeds. The first American atomic bomb is tested in New Mexico. It works. Truman now has the weapon he needs to threaten Germany. But Hitler has a head start. By mid-1945, Germany has produced 5 atomic bombs. It threatens to use them against American cities if the United States does not accept peace. German submarines are positioned off the American coast, ready to deliver bombs to New York, Washington, Boston, Philadelphia. Truman faces the most difficult decision in American history. Does he continue the war, knowing that American cities may be destroyed? Or does he accept peace with Nazi Germany, allowing the most evil regime in history to survive and dominate Europe? Truman chooses to continue. He believes that America's industrial capacity can outproduce Germany's. He believes that within a year, the United States will have dozens of atomic bombs, enough to threaten Germany with total annihilation. He believes that Hitler, faced with assured destruction, will back down, but he is wrong. Hitler does not back down. In August 1945, Germany detonates an atomic bomb off the coast of New York. The explosion occurs 20 miles offshore, but the blast is visible from Manhattan. The shockwave shatters windows. The mushroom cloud rises over the Atlantic. It is a demonstration, a warning of what will come if the United States does not surrender. Truman, faced with the threat of New York's destruction, finally agrees to negotiate. In September 1945, the United States and Nazi Germany sign a peace treaty. The United States recognizes German control of Europe. Germany agrees not to attack American territory. Both sides agree to a nuclear non-aggression pact. Neither will use atomic weapons against the other. The war is over. Nazi Germany has won. The world that emerges from this nightmare is almost unimaginable. Nazi Germany controls all of Europe. The Holocaust has not been stopped. It has been completed. By 1945, 6 million Jews have been murdered, along with millions of Roma, Slavs, disabled people, homosexuals and political dissidents. And with Germany victorious, the extermination continues. The Nazi racial ideology is implemented across the continent. Entire populations are enslaved or eliminated. In Eastern Europe, the surviving Slavic populations are reduced to serfdom. They are forced to work in German-owned farms and factories. Their children are taken and raised as Germans if they are deemed racially acceptable. The rest are left to die. The Nazi vision of Lebensraum is realized. Eastern Europe becomes a German colony. In Western Europe, puppet governments rule under German supervision. France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, all are part of a greater German Reich. Britain, isolated and defeated, watches from across the Channel as Europe is transformed into a Nazi empire. The Soviet Union survives, but barely. Stalin, having lost the western third of his country, retreats into paranoia and tyranny. He accelerates the Soviet nuclear program, desperate to develop a weapon that can threaten Germany. By 1949, the Soviet Union tests its first atomic bomb. The Cold War begins, but it is not a Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union. It is a Cold War between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. Two totalitarian empires, each armed with atomic weapons, face each other across a border stretching from the Baltic to the Black Sea. The United States, isolated and horrified, becomes a fortress. It pours resources into building atomic bombs. By 1950, the United States has over 100. By 1960, it has thousands, but it cannot use them. Germany also has thousands. Both sides are locked in a nuclear stalemate, mutually assured destruction, and the world lives under the shadow of Nazi Germany. A regime built on hatred, genocide, and conquest survives and thrives. The values of democracy, freedom, and human rights are confined to the Americas and a few isolated outposts. The rest of the world lives under tyranny. This is the world that would have been if Germany had developed the atomic bomb first. A world where evil triumphed. A world where the Holocaust was not stopped. A world where millions more died. A world fundamentally darker, more brutal, and more terrifying than anything we can imagine. But let us return to reality. Let us remember why this did not happen. Germany did not develop the atomic bomb first because it made bad decisions. It underestimated the importance of the bomb. It failed to commit the necessary resources. It drove away its best scientists through racial persecution. It focused on short-term weapons instead of long-term strategic advantage. The United States, by contrast, recognized the importance of the bomb. It committed vast resources. It brought together the best scientists from around the world, including many Jewish refugees who had fled Nazi Germany. It built the industrial infrastructure necessary to produce the bomb. And it succeeded. The atomic bomb was not inevitable. Germany could have built it, but it didn't, and that failure, that one critical mistake, ensured that Nazi Germany lost the war. If Germany had developed the bomb first, the outcome of World War II would have been very different. The Allies might have been forced to surrender, Nazi Germany might have survived, the Holocaust might never have been stopped, and the world would have descended into a darkness from which it might never have emerged. But that is not what happened. Germany failed. The United States succeeded. The bomb was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, ending the war with Japan. Nazi Germany had already been defeated by conventional means. The evil was stopped. This thought experiment is not meant to glorify the atomic bomb. The bomb is a terrible weapon. The destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki was a tragedy. Over 200,000 people died. The moral questions raised by the use of the bomb are still debated today. But imagine the alternative. Imagine the bomb in Hitler's hands. Imagine the targets he would have chosen. Imagine the world he would have built. And then understand why, for all the horror of Hiroshima, the world is profoundly fortunate that it was the United States, and not Nazi Germany, that developed the atomic bomb first.